looks like it's going. Okay, well, hello everyone. I think I am going live. Let's see. Let me bring up the group just to make sure. And then we will get started. Okay, yes, we are live. So welcome everyone. I am Michelle Arbori with Savvy Social Media. And today we are interviewing Jen. Jen, how do you say your last name?
Schwytzer.
Schwytzer, okay. So today, so we took a little break from the interviews due to some personal reasons going on with me, and plus it's summer. So it's really been busy, and already it's August and my son goes to school in a month. So, so it's been, a busy time, but that's okay. So between Jen and I, we've had to reschedule a few times, but we're finally here. So as a licensed social worker of over 15 years, the helping profession is in her blood. Her husband's unexpected health crisis opened up her world to personal development and coaching, which resulted in eventually receiving certification in health and life coaching from Health Coach Institute. She recognized that her current employment was not healthy for her. She was burned out and it was no longer rewarding. She found herself struggling to balance work and home life in a way that allowed her to provide the most support to her husband and her family during those tough times. Her mental health and the health of her family was not something she was willing to sacrifice for her job. A lot of people need to realize that. It takes us a while. Allowing personal development and coaching into her own life helped her show up in a way she never knew she could for both herself and her husband. From there, Kindfulness Coaching launched, and she's very much looking forward to guiding all of us in her journey to finding your best self, eliminating burnout, and learning to put yourself first. So welcome, Jen. Nice to have you finally.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate you having me.
So tell us more about, if you don't want to go into details about your husband's health crisis, but tell us more about what really changed, what made you want to open the business, all of that.
Sure. So as you said, I've been a social worker for over 15 years, working a lot in the hospital field. And so always kind of, stuck in that structure of, here's what you do when you do it. And it was actually during COVID when my husband went into heart failure, and he was in the ICU for about a month. And I started to experience those feelings of guilt related to my job. And, when are you coming back? How much time do you need off? All of those questions that surround a leave. And for me, that was a wake-up call that something's not working here. This is not where my priorities are. And so for me, it became, I dove into surrounding myself with incredibly positive women that were launching me to just survive that time in my life and just to keep moving forward. Like I was feeling really stuck at that moment. And I surrounded myself by some like-minded women who just helped guide me to personal development, taking care of myself during that time. And that's kind of where coaching came in. That's where it launched. Like, I was like, wow, I really like this personal development thing. I'm finding out a lot about myself, and I'm feeling okay. Like, I'm feeling like I can do this. I can handle this. And it excited me. And that was something that was missing from my career. It wasn't exciting anymore.
And I think a lot of people, like I've been on my own since 2000, almost 12 years. So, and we were just talking the other night, my husband and I, with some other people, and I'm like, I don't know if I could ever go back to the corporate world because I just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy when you get up and go to work every day, you're not going to succeed better than you already are. You're not going to be happy at home. You're not going to be happy with yourself.
Yeah.
So when it came time for you to leave your employment, were you nervous? Were you scared? I'm sure, but what finally gave you that push to say, and that courage to say, okay, I'm done with this?
Yeah. I was scared to death, and
Mhm.
I had no idea what was in store for me. Thankfully, I know that this might be different for women who might, or men who might be single, but we had the benefit of a second income. And that's kind of for me, like was my safety net, because I'm like, I don't know how much money I'm going to make. I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't know if anybody's going to want to sign on to this business that I'm starting. And so it was so scary. And I had actually one of my girlfriends at work tell me, you're making this decision now. It doesn't have to be the decision you make for the rest of your life.
Mm,
And for me, that was like that aha moment. And I was like,
mhm.
yeah, you're right. Like, this is what I need for me and my family right now. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm so happy. And like, I'm not a huge risk taker. And that was the
Either.
biggest risk ever.
Yeah.
And it paid off.
Yeah. So it sounds like your husband was very supportive, and I've always had a very supportive husband, and his dream was for me to be able to stay home and raise kids, which was also my dream. So how was it that you approached this with your husband, and how much talk did you do, and did you have to convince him, or was he right on board right away?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. When he came home from the hospital, I remember saying to him, I think I want to be a life coach. And he's like, cool, okay. Like, he
Good.
was so supportive. And so he was very supportive through my training and my courses. And then when I was ready to make that switch, he has just been all in with me, like my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. Anytime that I do, an interview or a podcast, or I sign a client, there's always a celebration in our home. And he has just been the most supportive, and I couldn't have done it without him.
So now for somebody who is single, like you and I, we have our husbands, how do you think someone can find that support to push them
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah. I actually just yesterday, not yesterday, today's Tuesday.
Yes.
When you work from home, you mix up the days.
Yes.
Sunday, I actually did a workshop with some of the women that I work with. And we talked about risk taking and goal setting. And we talked about different techniques that we can use to kind of really pull us forward. And a big piece of that was accountability buddies.
Mm,
And when you put something out there into the world, when you find somebody that's going to hold you accountable, like, let it be a neighbor or a girlfriend or a parent, a sibling, you're 95% more likely to crush that goal if you have that accountability. And so finding that person, that like-minded individual who's going to support you in, maybe that crazy dream that you have. And I think that that's so important to find.
and I think you're right, because you said you found your like-minded people, a bunch of women, and I love working with women. And I have my tribe as well. How did you find your tribe? Was it through networking, or did you already
Yeah.
have it, or how did you do that?
You know what? I think they found me. I
Mm,
think they found me when I was at my lowest, when my husband was in the hospital and I had, I wasn't sure, how to get there day to day. Like, they came to me.
mm,
And those are people that have stuck by me, and I will never let them go. They
yeah.
pulled me out of this, of this time. And I think it's in those moments when things are really, really hard that you find those people that are just going to help push you along.
And I think we all need that. I don't care if you are single or if you're
Yeah.
married, if it's even just one person, we
Yes.
all need those people to
Yeah.
encourage us. Because even as if you work in the workplace or if you work from home, you still need that encouragement.
Yes.
You still need that guidance,
Yeah.
because not everybody has a supportive husband or wife.
Right.
And you still need that push to get you through it.
Yeah.
So how did burnout show up for you?
Yeah. So I think that I was experiencing burnout well before my husband went into the hospital, and it just escalated from there. And
Mhm.
so for me, I would come home from work, I worked that 9 to 5. I would come home, I would be drained. I
Mm.
just had no energy. I didn't even have the ability to like make decisions about dinner. Like, my husband would be like, "What do you want for dinner?" I can't even think of something that I want for dinner. Like, my decision making went away. And I was showing up for work and just not wanting to be there. Like those Monday blues that you have. Like,
Here
it's
every
just
day.
exactly,
Yeah.
you show up and you're like, I could be a million other places doing a million other things. So for me, it was, just that feeling of fatigue, and, my decision making was gone, and I just didn't want to be there. And I thought I can do more than this. Like, I'm just not contributing what I could.
Yeah. So how did you, is that when you started to look into why life coach? Why did you pick life coach? Let's start there.
I think that I needed my own life coach during that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And so for me, I did both the health and life coaching piece of the certification process. And for me, life coaching just resonated. It's things that are important to me, like putting yourself first and making sure your cup is full before you can give to others. Those were things that I lived and experienced, and I feel like I'm just better equipped. And then my background in social work, I deal a lot with anxiety and depression. And so that's more of the realm that I'm most comfortable and most confident that I can really make a difference for somebody. The health coaching I struggle with. I need my own health coach because I love food and I love to snack. And so for me to coach somebody on that just didn't feel authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. So, what are some, now I know what my symptoms of stress and anxiety are. What are some common symptoms of stress and anxiety?
Yeah, I think, trouble sleeping is huge. I think that that presents for a lot of us. And waking up is very difficult because you didn't get that great sleep. Um, that people pleasing mentality comes in a lot, always trying to just please everybody else and always saying yes to somebody else.
Oh, I say yes all the time.
I know. And I
My
was one of
niece
those
just called me
people
this morning.
too.
She's like, "Yeah, Michelle, can I hang out with you today?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm always saying yes.
Yeah. And so, that comes up, and just the overall feeling of just discomfort, like, those racing thoughts, and just not experiencing life in the way that you want to.
And how does that affect your body, all of those things?
Yeah, so that is such a good question because, sorry, I have dogs here
That's
that
okay. I got
came
a
up.
cat meowing in the background, so it's okay. I'm surprised she hasn't jumped on the desk yet.
So it has a huge impact on your body. So I do have women that come to me and they're like, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, well, I'm going to approach it from a different point of view. I'm going to approach it from the stress, because stress in your body, stress going on for you, can cause your cortisol levels to go kind of bonkers. And
Mhm.
so with that higher cortisol level, you are experiencing like your digestion slows down, your fat stores. You're not able to be in a place where you're effectively putting through food through your body. And so you could be exercising daily, but if you're experiencing stress, you might not be losing any weight.
Mhm.
And so when we work on stress, we work on, increasing our energy so that, the food properly digests and the food is not storing in the form of fat. And that's going to help with weight loss. And so it has so many different effects, on that piece of it, but also headaches, stomach aches, ulcers, like all of that, like that comes
Mhm.
with stress can just be so overwhelming for your body.
So when it comes to managing, now I think I found a way to at least sleep better at night. My niece was talking to me last night about that. I use a diffuser with lavender.
Mhm.
I found a cream at Wegmans actually, that has melatonin in it. And I put that on my legs every night. And I use the lavender chapstick. And it seems within like a half hour, I'm out cold. And
Yeah.
a lot earlier than I used to be.
Mhm.
And then other stuff, like I try to do things for myself. I'll journal, or I started reading, I started walking. But what other ways can people manage all of this?
Yeah, I think so. Two tips. One is I always encourage intentional movement in your day. And so, not putting that pressure on yourself to exercise or do a certain program, but just getting some kind of intentional exercise in that always helps with stress,
Mhm.
sleep. Um, and also something I do with my clients is I have them develop what's called a nourishment menu. And so what we do with that is we identify when we're in a good place, when we're in a good headspace, we identify those things that bring us energy, bring us joy, those things that we like to do, like reading or journaling, talking to our kids or our grandkids or whatever that looks like. So we have this list. I always encourage women to bring this to work so you can have one at work and one at home. And when you're feeling stressed or know you have a stressful activity coming up, I want you to take something off of that menu. You don't even have to think about it. It's there for you. And so it's going to counteract that bad energy, that place of stress, and you're going to move it over to increasing your energy, pairing it with something that brings you joy. And so we work a lot on how to counteract some of those things because we know we can't eliminate stress altogether. So
Yeah,
how
I
do we
wish
best
we could.
manage?
That would
Yes.
be so nice. Another stress reliever. Oh, she's gone. Is my cat. Oh, there you are. Want to come say hello to everybody? Come here. Come here, baby. Oh, she's one of my stress relievers. Yes, you are.
Yeah, and some women put on their nourishment menu like pet my cat or pet my dog. Like,
If I am having a bad day, she sort of seems to know that they're right. That animals always know.
yeah.
But she'll show me more love, and I'll like, see, give me kisses. Oh, she's my little baby. So, so you and I are going to speak later on about anxiety. You and I are having our own little session, I believe. And so when somebody comes to you, how do you start working with somebody?
So I will, we will talk about what is going on for you currently. What is it, where are you now and where do you see yourself? And how do you see yourself? So I try and look at, that continuum of where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how do we get there? What needs to be developed? And how do we make this road, like it's basically like a roadmap of how you get from point A to point B. And so we talk about, your future goals and what that might look like, and how to achieve those. So a lot of my women that I work with are in very different places, and some come as a result of, I'm just retired and I don't really know what to do next, or I have so much on my plate, I'm not very organized, or I just want to feel happy. Like I don't feel happy in my life. So it's kind of it's a very informal conversation about where you are now, where you want to be, and how I might be able to help you to get there.
So for the people that don't have the luxury of owning their own business like we do, and they still work in the workforce, especially now since COVID, people are starting to go back to their offices and everybody's under their own pressure. How does stress appear in the workplace, do you think, differently than at home or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I think I think things to look out for are staff shortages, overburdened work.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. If you have somebody that's not consistently, performing at the level that they should be performing at, something's probably going on. Or if you just have those, I don't really, my heart's not into it. Like you can usually tell, if somebody doesn't want to be there and somebody doesn't want to do that, I think that there's a certain, sense that somebody can give off. And so, I think that it is coming up a lot. And you have a lot of managers and leadership that are like, oh, self-care, take care of yourself, but they don't give anybody the tools to be able to figure out how to do that.
Mhm.
And I think that that's the issue. Yes, we can tell somebody that this is what they should be doing, but we also need to offer them the tools to figure out how to
Yeah,
best
and
to do
how do you
that.
approach that with your boss or your supervisor? I would be afraid, I don't know, to say, I need a mental day, but do they really care or understand?
Right.
You know,
And
it
I will
is
encourage,
too. I kept
yeah.
my son Mikey home a couple of times last year
Mhm,
because he was with his anxiety. I
mhm.
could just tell those days that he was just not there.
Yeah,
And I didn't tell the school it was a mental day, but you're afraid to say that. So how do
you
you approach
are.
that?
You really are. And I think that, overall in the US and in the world, there is a push to, you know, take that stigma away from mental health. However, it's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there. And so my advice would be, use those vacation days, use those sick days, and you don't have to explain, And so you have so many women that experience so much guilt as a result of taking a vacation day or a sick day.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you to use them. That's what they're there for. It doesn't have to be a physical ailment. Like if that day is just, you're just not feeling it, like there's something else going on, take the day.
And then how do you address stress and anxiety with kids? Because, you think they're a kid. And I used to think this until my son got diagnosed with anxiety. You think they're a kid. What stress do they have? What
Yeah.
anxiety do they have? What
Yeah.
pressure do they have? But since he was home for 2 years and then just going back last year, just that anxiety of being back with kids again.
Yeah.
But how do you address it with kids so that they understand? I don't know if you deal with kids or not, but
Yeah. Yeah. So I always, coming from a therapy background, I always encourage, if there are, concerns that warrant, like if they feel like they need to talk about it and you don't feel equipped, bringing in a professional is obviously the best case scenario. But asking questions, I think we get nervous ourselves because of that stigma around it. And it's okay to ask them questions. And by asking them questions and letting them know that you can identify with what they're going through, they don't feel so alone. And so, hey, I see that, you might be having a hard day. Do you want to talk about it?
yeah.
And just for them to know that somebody's there to listen when they're ready is like huge.
I think for my son, knowing that I have it as well,
Mhm,
it was hard for my husband to accept that he had anxiety
mhm.
because he didn't want him on any medication, but we wound up putting him on medication. But I think him knowing that I suffer from it, my father suffers from it. He actually talked to my father and he made him feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just, and especially with bullying, and I don't know if you deal with bullying and all that, but how does that affect, even in adults get bullied?
Yeah.
How does bullying affect somebody's stress and anxiety?
Well, I think it can have a significant effect. And it can be, I mean, it can be detrimental to self-esteem and confidence. And so those are things that, at home that have to be like a special emphasis on confidence and self-esteem and just again just being there and knowing like if this were me, maybe this is how I would handle the situation.
Mhm.
Or how did you handle it? You seem to have handled it really, really well. Just continuing to give that support, like that's a tough one. That's really tough.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are experiencing that right now with my son. He's being bullied a couple of times
Ugh,
in school, so we know how that's affected him.
yeah.
And it's just so hard to see your child go through something that you want to fix and you can't. So, do
Right.
you have kids?
We do not know.
Oh, okay. You got dogs, you got
We
kittens.
have two that are making a lot of noise behind
No,
me.
they're fine. I see their little tails here and there. No, they're cute. Yes, I got two kids, my cat and my son. But so when you started your business, so you started it in February of this year, you said.
Yep.
What struggles did you have that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So one of my, coming out of my training and certification program, I thought, geez, clients are just going to come to me. Like, I am like this, I have all these certificates and I have a background in social work. Like, who wouldn't want to work with me?
Exactly.
And then I was like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. And people don't just come to me.
They don't come knocking at your door.
And I think that's what I was expecting. And so for me, it's been a lot of networking. I've done a lot of in-person, online. I've joined some networking groups and just I did a lot of pro bono at the beginning too. And so working with clients to experience a transformation, and word of mouth has been amazing. I've had former clients who are sending people my way. And so for me, that's like the most amazing compliment you could have, is because somebody experienced something so great and they're passing it along to somebody else. And so for me, that's been how I've kind of worked through that. And I continue to work through that.
Oh yeah. I don't always have clients knocking at my door either. And I've been doing this for 12 years. So, I forgot my train of thought now. I hate when that happens. So networking. How are you finding good networking groups?
Well, it's a great question, because I found a lot of not great networking groups.
There are some out there, yes.
I actually joined one of the bigger ones, the Business Networking International, which is BNI.
Oh, yes.
And that is, I actually, I have a connection with other coaches, not only in my community, but in other states as well. And so just connecting with other coaches to see what they're doing and what's been working for them has been super helpful for me.
And now I remember the question. So anybody who's listening, because I'm going to put this up on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. Who is your target market? Who do you love and get excited to work with?
I love working with professional women. Right now, I'm actually experiencing a lot of women who are nearing age of retirement, and are just looking to gain a little bit of that joy back into their life. They feel like they've been going through the motions and aren't super excited and happy with where things are for them right now. Those are the women I've been attracting. My ideal client would be a professional woman in her 30s who is just wondering if where she is right now in her career is where she wants to be, or if there's other things out there for her that are going to bring that joy back.
And how do you find that out with somebody? So what if somebody comes to, they're not sure what their goals are, they're not sure what they want to do. How do you really, because I love when I coach, even on social media, I make them think and pull stuff out of them. Yeah. How do you pull that stuff out of them? How do you make them think outside of the box?
Yeah, sometimes it's on the fly, it's really listening and pulling out those key points and asking more and more questions. You get on a first call with me and I'm going to ask you all of the questions, and I'm going to keep asking you why. Tell me more. Tell me a little bit about that. Why is that? And so we're going to kind of get down to the crux of, this is what I want. And for some people, they're not really sure. They have this general idea of where they want to be. And so we're like, okay, let's talk about some of these things. Have these come up for you? But also some people just aren't ready.
Mm-hmm. And when they're not, how do you just say, come back to me when you're ready? Or do you help them get ready? I don't know.
Yeah. So that would kind of be an individual conversation. I can bring you through this, this program, but if we're not working on something that means a lot to you, it's probably not going to work. And so if there's not that deep conviction of why I'm doing what I'm doing, we might not be able to get to where you want to be.
Mm.
And that's a conversation we would have like on the, the first call can last a little bit longer, and it's going to be an honest conversation. If I don't feel like I'm the best person or can help you with what you're looking for, I'm going to tell you. And if I know somebody else that might be, I'm going to probably give them that name.
And I think that's great too, because there's a lot of people out there who just want to do it for the money, whether they can help you or not.
Right.
And I'm not one of those people either.
Yeah.
If I can't help you, or if I feel like we're not a good fit, I will not work with you.
Right. I have a business owner who I have a good connection with, a business connection with, and I've been on her podcast and I did a workshop for her members, and she texted me and said, "Hey, I would really love just a one-off session. Like, can I book that with you?" And I said, "Sure." I went to get a little bit more information, and she was just having some struggles around her business. And I thought, okay, we get on the phone, and it was more of a friend conversation. It was more, she needed a little support. She was going through a transition, and she had some adversity going on in her business. And I think she just needed a supportive person to talk to. And we got off the phone, and she texted me and she's like, "How much do I owe you?" And I was like, "Nothing." This was a conversation for a friend to have, like, and I'm happy to be that person for you.
Yeah.
But there's no, that's not something that I can do, or that's not who I am authentically.
And that shows a lot of you too, that you're not all about the money either.
Yeah.
You're there to help, and and she trusted you to come to you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to self-care for you and work-life balance, how did you figure that out, and what do you do for yourself every day?
Yeah. So one is I do a lot of reading. Reading is my favorite thing to
I love it.
be able to decompress, but I can't read like self-help or, I'm a fiction, like I'm all about fiction.
I have all these books, and I just started reading again. That was part of my self-care journey. I don't know if we're friends on Facebook, but I did say step 1 of my self-care journey, step 2, step 3 was reading. So yeah, I love reading.
Reading for me, during the summer, I take my dogs for walks. We will do like an hour walk of just in nature, away from everything else, unplugged, and just enjoying the time. And I always try and get a workout in somewhere, some kind of intentional movement. Doesn't have to be a strenuous workout. But for me, those are super important. But one thing that came up for me big time in starting a business was boundaries. Like my phone has to go off at a certain time, or I could be working all night and just, throw all of what I do and what I teach away. And so that's part of my self-care, is turning off work at a certain time to be present.
Yeah, I've learned to do that too. I had one client years and years and years ago. She would email and text me all hours of the day. And I was so dedicated, I would do it. And then I finally fired the client because I got tired of having her take advantage of my time. So if you do feel stuck like that, I don't know if firing the client could have been the right thing. Well, it could have been. But how do you deal with that? If you're in a situation that you're not comfortable with, that can be stressful and anxious, how do you deal with that?
For me, I will make sure my boundary is known. So I had a client text me at 8 p.m. last night. My day ended at 6. And so I texted her this morning, and she had about 5 text messages, nothing urgent. And I said, so sorry I didn't get these messages. My day was over at 6.
Good for you.
That's it.
Yeah, it's in my contract now, my proposals, that I don't work on Mondays because my husband doesn't work on Mondays. And I work Tuesday to Friday, 10 to 5.
Yep.
And I'm very good, unless somebody texted me the other night, but it was a post that I had shared and she wasn't good with it.
Yeah.
So I had to take that down. But normally 5 o'clock, I'm done with work. Unless it's a networking event, I'm done with work. And I want my son to see
Mhm.
those, that I can set those boundaries,
Yes.
because that shows him that, hey, if my mom can do that,
Mhm.
then I can do that. And, how important is it? I know it's really important to be a good example for your kids, but how important is it to have your kids see how strong we are?
So, so
And your
important.
husband, he
Yeah.
fought, through that heart condition. And
Yeah.
you think kids don't really look at what you do,
Yeah.
but they do.
Yeah. I actually, during COVID was working out on Zoom with a
Mm.
lot of women whose kids would be in the Zoom with them, just watching them.
Oh, my son was always in my Zooms during
Yep.
COVID.
Yep.
Yes.
And it would be, I'm watching my mom work, or I'm watching my mom, take care of herself. And that should be the norm. That shouldn't
Mhm.
be, the just, it shouldn't be I'm at a loss for what word I'm looking for.
Embarrassing that we take time for ourselves, or,
Right, right.
you know,
Or you shouldn't feel that guilt
guilt. Yeah.
around, you shouldn't experience that guilt like, oh, well, I'm working out, so I'm not spending, half an hour with my child.
Hmm.
But what your child sees is you taking time for yourself and you making yourself a priority. And I think that that's so important. And to get rid of that guilt, I think is big for, especially for moms.
So during all that time with your husband being sick, you left your employment for a great opportunity. What did you learn about yourself during that time?
I am way stronger than I ever imagined I could be. I never thought that I would make it through that month of him being in the hospital. And I held everything together. The house didn't fall down. We paid our bills. Like, I am way stronger. Like, I didn't know the strength and confidence I had in myself until that moment. And
Yeah.
that was a changing point in my life.
So somebody who does have trouble finding that confidence, how did you find that confidence? Was it through other people encouraging you? Was it you?
Yeah.
How did you find that confidence?
I actually, so I read two books that I would absolutely 100% recommend to anybody listening. One is Jen Sincero. Um, and I'm going to probably screw up the name of it, but it is on Amazon. She has a series of three, but I think it's Badass Habits.
Okay.
And it talks about like stop the excuses and just keep moving forward because
Mm.
you can do it. And for me, that's what I needed. I needed like a little kick in the pants to keep going. But Jen Sincero, she is amazing. I've seen her speak before, and
Mm.
she is so motivating. And the second book is The Energy Bus. And it's one of my absolute favorites. And they talk about mindset and the ability to change your mindset. If you go into a negative situation, it's likely going to be negative. If you go in thinking, okay, this isn't so bad, I'm going to, this is what I'm going to get out of it, you're likely going to experience something positive. And those two books, reading those books at the beginning of my professional development and personal development journey were game changers for me.
And if you are having a bad day, because we all do,
Sure.
especially in business, you get
Hmm.
frustrated, or
Yep.
you didn't sign that client you wanted, or you don't have any clients. How do you push yourself through? What gets you through the day?
A nap. Some days are just harder than others.
Yes,
And
they are.
for me, I use an organizational tool that's really important to me, and it's making sure my priorities are done. And the priorities are what makes me, spin. It's what
Mhm.
makes my day fulfilled. And so my priorities are around personal development. And so for me, as long as those things on my calendar are done and I've done, completed my meetings and what I have to do for the day, I'm going to check out
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm not
so
going to put my energy, I don't have the energy to properly give to something else.
yeah, and that's important, because if you don't have the energy, then you're gonna just not do it well, or be grumpy.
Yep, exactly.
Definitely be
Exactly.
grumpy.
Yep. Yep.
So besides knowing how strong you are and all of that, what is something else you learned about yourself during this time?
I can start a business. Like I never imagined myself in this place that I am a business owner and I work for myself. And I have the freedom to be able to make my own schedule. And I never imagined that I could have the discipline or the confidence to do this.
See, a lot of it is around confidence and
Mhm.
bravery
Yes.
and courageousness and all of that. Because so if somebody is afraid to leave their job,
Mhm.
let's say they are miserable because you did it, I did it. What would you say to them to really give them that encouragement?
Well, I think too, you have to take that step back and, try and figure out for you what is the best thing to do. Is the best thing to stay and learn how to manage the stressors around my job? Because some people can't do that,
Mhm.
and don't have the ability to do that. So, how can I make this work for me for right now? And for other people, like, let's get a plan in place, not just leaving your job and being like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but let's have this plan of where you want to be in, the next 3 months, 6 months, year. Like, what does that look like? And make sure that that is developed in a way that, you can be successful. I think that's really important to first recognize if that's even an option to leave your job, because some people unfortunately don't have that option. And for others, it's let's get that plan in place to make this a successful transition.
I think that's so great. Well, I'm so glad we talked.
Yeah.
Um, how can people get in touch with you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Jen Schwytzer. Um, Instagram is kindfulness_coaching. And my website is kindfulnesscoaching.net.
How did you come up with the name?
Kindfulness, obviously it's a play on mindfulness, but I am all about being kind to yourself and others. And so I just thought that was like the most fitting thing.
Mhm.
I have all of the Be Kind shirts, and when I go out into the community or I go to a restaurant or I go somewhere, my mission is always to be kind to somebody. And so
You need it
um
nowadays.
yeah, kindfulness just kind of came to me, and I was like, yep, that's me.
Awesome. So what is one thing you would like to leave everybody with?
I think this is sometimes cliche, but you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mm.
You have to have something within you and in you in order to give to others. So as much as you want to help or do things for others, until you do something for yourself, you're not going to be successful at that. And so remembering to make yourself a priority, put yourself first, and you will be able to spread that love and that excitement out to others.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
joining me
you.
today. We were
Yeah.
finally able to do it. So if you have any questions for Jen, make sure to leave a comment and reach out to her. What's your email address if people want to get in touch with you?
Kindfulnesscoaching@gmail.com.
Perfect. So yeah, make sure to comment. And then we have another interview coming up Thursday. I forget what time. Let me look. Let's see. Let me find my calendar. You think I'd have that up and ready? So Thursday at 11, and I will be interviewing Hillary Baguette. And we're looking forward to that. And then, yeah, just enjoy the rest of your summer and
Thank
take time
you.
for yourself. I think that's really important. Like I said, I just started doing that recently again,
Good
and
job.
I'm not doing it to lose weight. I'm doing it to feel healthier.
Yes.
And I was just telling my niece today, if I miss a smoothie or if I miss a walk, that's okay.
Okay.
I used to put pressure on myself that, I got to exercise every day. I got to have my smoothie every day. And then I would miss a day and then I would just give up. So now it's just, hey, whenever I get to it, that's okay.
Love it.
Because I'm trying to take time for myself.
I love it.
So we will see you guys later. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much,
joining us.
Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's see. Okay, let me stop.